The health inspector stood at the edge of Kira Osei's mud pond and grimaced. "Miss Osei, this looks like a mosquito farm. You sure you're raising fish in there?" Kira netted a silver flash from the murky water, a fish the size of her palm, scales gleaming. She held it up. The inspector blinked. "Tilapia," she said quietly. "Grows in half the time of commercial operations. Tastes better too." He made a note on his clipboard, still frowning. Behind him, 3 restaurant owners waited by their cars, arms crossed. One was already on his phone. 10 weeks earlier, the auction in Tulare County lasted 7 minutes. Property 089-442-107, 42 acres, June 3, 2024, 9:15 a.m. Former dairy land, southern San Joaquin Valley, soil compaction and drainage issues, no structures, no improvements. The auctioneer barely tried. "Anyone want to start at $15,000? Kira Osei, 26 years old, held a cashier's check for $15,400, everything her grandfather left her after his funeral expenses were paid. Around her, men in ranching jackets shifted and murmured. They knew what she'd learn. Compacted dairy land grew nothing but problems. "15,000, she said clearly. No one countered. The gavel fell. The clerk, an older man with sun-spotted hands, pushed the deed across. "You know what dairy operations do to land? Cows pack that soil down like concrete. Nothing drains. Nothing grows. You'd need 50,000 just to make it farmable." "I know," Kira said. "Your grandfather, he was Kofi Osei?" "Yes, sir." The clerk's expression softened. "He was a good man. Worked dairy his whole life. Saved every penny." He paused. "This land broke him, you know? He tried to buy it in 2008, lost the financing. Worked other farms after that." Kira nodded. She'd been 14 when Grandpa Kofi lost his savings in the housing crash. Watched him work double shifts at other people's dairies, writing in his notebook every night at the kitchen table. He'd left her the money and a metal strongbox with a combination scratched on the bottom in his handwriting. His village name in Ghana, spelled in numbers. Inside the notebook, a hand-drawn diagram of terraced ponds, and a letter on thin paper, his careful script. "The mud is not your enemy. It is misunderstood. What they tried to drain, you must embrace. The fish my father raised in Ghana, they thrive in what others call waste. Study the old method." Pages 23 to 29. "Do not explain yourself to doubters. The water will prove you right." She drove to the property that afternoon in her grandfather's 1994 Ford Ranger with 198,000 miles on it. The land was flat and gray-brown, pocked with standing water that never drained. Mud everywhere. The ground sucked at her boots. Rusted dairy equipment lay half-buried. The fence was trampled in a dozen places. She walked the perimeter, took 2 hours. Every step was effort, the mud releasing her boots with obscene sounds. The standing water smelled like old minerals and cow manure. No one had farmed this in 6 years. That night, parked in the Ranger at the property's edge, Kira opened the notebook to pages 23 to 29 by dome light. Her grandfather's notes were copied from something older, a method from Ghana, adapted for California. Detailed sketches, shallow earthen ponds, not drained fields. Fish species drawn with labels in 2 languages. Not trout or catfish. Tilapia, Oreochromis niloticus, a species that thrived in warm, muddy water. That ate algae and grew fast. That bred readily in the right conditions. Below the sketches, calculations, stocking densities, feeding protocols, harvest cycles. 18 months to establish a breeding population. 36 months to full commercial production. All using the land exactly as it was, compacted, muddy, waterlocked. The next morning, she drove 8 hours south to an agricultural college in San Diego and found a professor in the aquaculture department. Dr. Patricia Mwangi, 50-something, originally from Kenya. "I'm looking for tilapia fingerlings," Kira said. "For mud ponds in the Central Valley." Dr. Mwangi studied her. "Most people want concrete tanks. Climate-controlled systems. I can't afford that. My grandfather raised tilapia in earthen ponds in Ghana. I have his methods." Something shifted in Dr. Mwangi's expression. "Show me." Kira opened the notebook. Dr. Mwangi read, turned pages, studied the diagrams. Finally, she looked up. "This is sound. Old school, but sound. You understand the risks? Disease, predators, temperature fluctuations, water quality." "Yes, ma'am." I can sell you 1,000 fingerlings. $200. But if you're serious, you need to test your water first. Kira had the water tested, $80 she couldn't afford. The results came back adequate. pH 7.2, dissolved oxygen good, nutrient-rich from years of dairy runoff. Dr. Mwangi called it perfect for tilapia. Back at the property, Kira used a rented excavator, $220 a day, for days, charged to a credit card, to shape the land into a series of shallow ponds following her grandfather's diagrams. Not fighting the water, but directing it. The mud became walls. The standing water became habitat. The neighbors came to watch like it was performance art. Tom Brewer, 64, owned the almond orchard to the east. He leaned on his truck. You're making mud ponds? On purpose. Yes, sir. For what frogs? Fish. His face went through expressions. Miss, fish farming takes infrastructure. Tanks, pumps, filtration. You can't just dig holes and hope. Kira kept working, shaping pond walls with a shovel. Her shoulders burned. Tom's son, Marcus, maybe 35, laughed from the truck. City girl playing farmer. Give it 3 months. Kira said nothing. 2 weeks later, she released the fingerlings, tiny silver flashes, each smaller than her thumb. They disappeared into the murky water like wishes. The fish vanished for 6 weeks. Kira checked the ponds every morning, staring into brown water that revealed nothing. She fed the calculated amounts, commercial pellets mixed with duckweed she cultivated in separate shallow basins. The food disappeared, but she never saw fish. By late July, the neighbors' comments shifted from mockery to pity. Tom Brewer's wife, Linda, brought over a casserole. Honey, if things don't work out, Tom knows people hiring at the packing plant. Thank you, ma'am, Kira said. The fish are doing fine. Linda's smile was kind and disbelieving. The real skeptics came from Central Valley Protein Farms, a massive catfish operation 3 miles south. Wade Mitchell, operations manager, arrived in a white pickup with a company logo. He wore wraparound sunglasses and didn't take them off. Kira Osei, heard you're trying to farm tilapia in mud ponds. Yes, sir. He walked to the nearest pond, looked at the murky water. Can't see anything. You sure they're alive? They're alive. Miss Osei, I've been farming fish 20 years. Tilapia need controlled environments. Temperature management, aeration, disease prevention. You've got, he gestured, puddles. Kira had $140 in her bank account and a credit card nearly maxed. Her truck needed brake work she couldn't afford. She was eating rice and canned beans. It's a different method, she said quietly. Wade smiled like she was a child. Good luck. When reality hits, Central Valley Protein is always looking for land. We'd give you $20,000 for this property, clear your debts. After he left, Kira sat on the tailgate and opened her grandfather's notebook. His words on page 29, patience. The water works slowly. Trust what you cannot see. The first confirmed sighting came on August 12th. Kira was checking water temperature, 78 degrees, perfect, when she saw movement. Not one fish. Dozens. They'd been hiding in the mud, growing in the murk, and now they were big enough to be confident. Silver bodies, 6 inches long, mouths working at the algae on the pond walls. She knelt in the mud and watched them. Her throat got tight. By September, the fish were everywhere. The ponds roiled with them at feeding time. Kira started testing harvest, netting a dozen here and there, checking size and condition. They were beautiful, bright-eyed, firm-fleshed, faster growing than her grandfather's calculations predicted. The nutrient-rich water and constant food supply were accelerating growth. She called Dr. Mwangi. They're breeding. There was a pause. Already? How many generations? I'm seeing juveniles, subadults, and adults. Multiple size classes. The conditions must be ideal. Kira, if they're breeding successfully in earthen ponds, that's remarkable. Most commercial operations struggle with natural reproduction. But breeding wasn't profit. Kira harvested 20 pounds of market-size fish and drove them to the Saturday Farmers Market in Fresno. She had no booth, just a cooler and a handwritten sign. Fresh tilapia. Farm-raised. $8 per lb. People walked past. One woman stopped. Where's your stall? Just started. First harvest. Is it safe? Looks muddy. They're raised in earthen ponds. That's natural habitat. They're healthy and clean. The woman bought 2 pounds, skeptical. Kira sold 12 pounds that day. made $96. Drove home with the rest spoiling in the cooler. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A man in his 40s, dressed too well for a farmer's market, stopped by her cooler at 11 a.m. "You're the one farming tilapia in mud ponds?" "Yes. I'm James Chun. I own Tributary Restaurant in Fresno. Someone told me about you." Kira's heart kicked. "I have fresh fish." "I can see that. Can I try a sample?" She brought a small camp stove, just in case. She filleted a fish on a cutting board, pan-seared it in butter she'd bought that morning. 3 minutes. Salt and pepper. She handed him a piece on a paper plate. James chewed slowly, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded. "The texture is perfect. Firm. And the flavor, it's clean, but it has character. Not bland like most farm tilapia. The earthen ponds give them a more natural diet," Kira explained. "Algae, insects, buried nutrients." "How much can you supply weekly?" Kira did math in her head. 50 pounds. More in 3 months. "I'll take 50 pounds a week at $6 a pound. Delivered. $300 a week." It wasn't enough, but it was proof. By October, she had 3 more restaurant accounts. James had referred them. She was delivering 120 pounds weekly, making $700. Still not enough, but moving in the right direction. Then the health department showed up. A complaint had been filed anonymous. The inspector, a tired-looking man named Rodriguez, walked the property with a clipboard. "I need to see your aquaculture permits, your water quality reports, your food safety protocols." Kira had researched everything, filed everything, kept meticulous records. She showed him the binder. He flipped through, nodding. "This is actually thorough." He looked at the ponds. "But I need to see the fish. And I need to inspect your processing area." Her processing area was a folding table and a cooler. Rodriguez sighed. "Miss Osei, you're operating a food production facility out of your truck." "I'm following all the guidelines. The guidelines assume indoor processing. You need a licensed facility." The next morning, James Chin called. "Kira, the health department contacted me. They're saying your operation might not be compliant. I can't risk my restaurant." She lost all 4 accounts in 2 days. Kira sat in the Ranger and did the math. She had $840 in the bank, $200 worth of fish in the ponds, and no buyers. The credit card was maxed. The truck's brakes were grinding metal on metal. Central Valley Protein Farms sent another offer, $20,000. Wade Mitchell's note said, "Still interested? Let us know." She opened her grandfather's notebook, looking for answers that weren't there. But on the inside back cover, she found something she'd missed, a name and phone number, written years ago, faded. Samuel Boateng, Ghana Fish Co., 559-555-0147. She called. An older man answered. "Boateng. Mr. Boateng? My name is Kira Osei. My grandfather was Kofi Osei." "Kofi." The man's voice changed completely. "Kofi Osei was my friend. We worked together at the dairy 20 years. I am so sorry. I heard he passed." "Yes, sir. He left me his fish farming methods. I'm trying to follow them, but I've run into problems with health department compliance." There was a pause. "You are farming tilapia? In California? In earthen ponds?" Just like he taught. "Kira, listen to me. I own a fish processing facility in Madera. Licensed, inspected, the full thing. I process for 6 farms. I knew your grandfather wanted to farm fish. He talked about it constantly. If you are doing what he dreamed, you bring your fish to my facility. I will process them. You pay me 10% of sales. Fair?" Kira's eyes burned. "Yes, sir. Very fair." Samuel Boateng's facility was clean, efficient, and fully compliant. He showed her around like a proud uncle. The processing lines, the blast freezers, the loading dock. "You bring me fish, I clean them, package them, handle all the paperwork. You just farm." Within 2 weeks, Kira had her accounts back. James Chin even increased his order to 75 pounds weekly. Samuel introduced her to 2 wholesale distributors who supplied restaurants across the Central Valley. By December, she was harvesting 300 pounds weekly. The ponds were thriving, multiple generations breeding continuously, the population self-sustaining. Her grandfather's method was working exactly as designed. Low input, high output, using the land's natural conditions instead of fighting them. But the real vindication came in January, when a winter storm hit the valley. Temperatures dropped to 31 degrees for 3 nights. Central Valley protein farms lost 40% of their stock. Their temperature-controlled systems failed during a power outage, and the backup generators couldn't keep up. Kira's earthen ponds, deeper and insulated by mud, held temperature. The fish survived without intervention. Wade Mitchell called her himself. "Miss Osei, I was wrong. I'm calling to apologize and to ask if you'd consult for us. We're looking at earthen pond systems as backup to our main operation." "I appreciate that, Mr. Mitchell. We'd pay $10,000 for 3 months of consultation." She named her price instead, $15,000. "And Central Valley Protein stops trying to buy my land." "Deal." By spring, Kira had 6 restaurant accounts, 2 wholesale contracts, and consulting income. She paid off the credit card, fixed the truck, and saved enough to build a proper on-site processing shed designed by Samuel and approved by Rodriguez, the health inspector, who'd become almost friendly. Tom Brewer came by in March with his son Marcus. The younger man looked embarrassed. "Miss Osei, I owe you an apology. I laughed at you." "Water under the bridge," Kira said. Tom spoke up. "That corner of my orchard, 10 acres, it's always waterlocked. Never drains right. Could your method work there?" "Probably better than almonds," Kira said. She helped Tom convert the land, teaching him her grandfather's method. They became the 2nd tilapia operation in the county. Then a 3rd farm started. Then a 4th. On a Saturday in June, exactly 1 year after the auction, Kira stood at the edge of her largest pond. The water was dark brown, rich with life. Silver flashes moved beneath the surface, hundreds of fish, thousands, breeding and growing and thriving in conditions everyone said were impossible. She opened her grandfather's notebook to the last page, where he'd written in shaky script weeks before he died. "The old ways are not dead. They are waiting for someone to remember them. I'm sorry I could not do this myself. But you have the strength I lacked. Farm with patience. Fish with wisdom. The water will provide." She closed the notebook carefully. In the distance, Tom Brewer was checking his new ponds. Samuel Boateng's truck was pulling up with supplies. James Chun had texted that morning asking if she could supply 100 pounds next week. His restaurant was expanding. Her grandfather had left her $15,000 and a dream written in a notebook. She turned it into 42 acres of thriving ponds, a sustainable business, and proof that mud wasn't a problem. It was an ecosystem waiting to be understood. Kira smiled and went to feed her fish.